Hey, Slater Crusaders. Check this out. My beautiful, intelligent, beat to the sound of his own drum, annoying, charming baby brother was killed yesterday, helping to save lives. He was the medic, there to help people. And now he's gone. And my family will never be the same. I was the sister of one of the Marines who was killed in Afghanistan last week. I don't know how to pronounce this woman's name. I apologize. Is it Joanny Rosario Pichardo? She was a Marine there as well. She sent an email to a friend last week, and in it she said, I get to deploy to Afghanistan. She gets to. These people, they're different. Thank God for them. The failure of Afghanistan for the last 20 years, and certainly the last 2 weeks, is not even close to the fault of our men and women on the ground. It's the fault and it's the rot at the top that resulted in this. These Americans coming home very differently than they certainly should have. And now we're done. It's over. The gates are sealed at the airports. No one else is getting out. At least not formally through our U.S. government. There's a bunch of groups of former special op guys who are still rescuing Americans and our allies, but they're not doing it with our government's help. We're going to talk about them in the next segment. And every other country is officially done as well with the evacuations. So we kept our end of the bargain, as Biden would say. We kept our end of the bargain. Good for you, Biden. We're out by August 31st. Congratulations. The Taliban, very grateful for you keeping your word on that, Biden. Now you think they're going to keep up their end of the bargain and not proceed to kill thousands of people, including the hundreds of Americans who the State Department admits are left behind? You think they're going to keep their end of the bargain? We kept ours, August 31st. Good for you, Joe. And here's the real question about the next week moving forward. Literally just this week even. If the Taliban kills thousands of people and our media doesn't report on it, did it even happen? If the Taliban goes on and kills thousands of people across Afghanistan and our media doesn't report it, did it even happen? We'll see. This is a Black Lives Matter activist in Virginia. She said, my family's in Kabul, says that the local mosque just announced that the Taliban will be conducting random house searches after 7 p.m. This is horrifying. I say Black Lives Matter activist because this is how bipartisan this is now. That's how bipartisan awful this is. How much of a failure this has been. Everyone agrees. And by the way, we're only 7 months into his presidency. And as Jesse Kelly said the other day, you're mad now? You're mad now about how this is all going down? Just wait till September 11th comes around. And Joe Biden continues to frame this as some sort of great victory. And he's the great peacemaker. And no one at the top ever admits a single mistake, let alone resigns or gets fired. New York Magazine, it's an important part of what I'm going to tell you. New York Magazine, not a far right. New York Magazine wrote a brutal article about all this. And specifically, it was about a Democrat congressman from Massachusetts, Seth Moulton. He's a Marine. And this is what he wrote about his trip to Kabul airport last Tuesday. He said it was the most visceral, raw view of humanity I'll ever see in my life. Thousands of refugees camped out and desperate to fly out of the country. Here's the New York Magazine. The experience left Moulton more convinced than ever that President Joe Biden made grave mistakes in the handling of the exit. Here's the quote. The thing that everybody needs to understand, even if you completely agree with the Biden administration's decision to withdraw, which most people do, the way they've handled this has been a total blanking disaster. It will be measured in bodies because a lot of people are dying because they can't get out. Thousands will get slaughtered by the Taliban if we don't somehow devise a plan to get them out before we leave. These are all things that the administration has failed to do, and I know this because people on the ground are telling me, and we did not do the things, and we have left people behind. So again, he's done 4 deployments to Iraq, this congressman did. The Democratic congressman. He's done 4 deployments to Iraq, and he understands the importance of the interpreters. And he promised these guys when he was in Iraq, he promised them, he said, listen, you have our back, I will have yours. We're going to protect your family. We're not going to leave you behind. And in Afghanistan, with a lot of these people, we've left them behind. To our great shame, we've left them behind. One last quote from the congressman. He says, I've never seen more people cry, just salty Marines, seasoned State Department veterans break down in tears. One State Department official said, I knew this had to end someday, but none of us wanted it to end like this. New York Magazine says that the congressman is adamant that the administration has created a disaster of epic proportions, and the blame squarely falls at the feet of the White House. That's the congressman. The blame squarely falls at the feet of the White House. Biden's presidency is starting to crumble. The Potemkin Village is starting to show what it really is, and it should, and it inevitably will, by the way. Sam Harris, if you're not familiar with him, he's probably the most influential atheist in America. Very influential person, hated Trump, supported Biden, and now has turned on Biden. Now, these stories I'm going to share you here real quick, these are important because the safer it becomes to be critical of Joe Biden and wake up from the spell that the media has cast on so many people, then the quicker he'll leave, which of course leaves us with President Kamala. So we're in big trouble either way, but this madness has to stop. Anyway, Sam Harris back January 20th, 2020. So this is when Biden just took over. When he first became president, Sam Harris said, I'm feeling overwhelming gratitude for the adults in the room, right? As opposed to Trump's team, who were evil, horrible monsters who, ushered in Middle East peace deals, but whatever, forget about that. Trump is a terrible, horrible, evil person. Finally, now we have adults. The adults are in the room. And that was an overwhelming belief that Joe was the competent and compassionate response to Donald Trump. Well, now people are starting to see the truth. Even Sam Harris responding to his own tweet now, saying, I'm publicly eating these words, syllable by syllable. He called Biden a callous moron, and all of it's sickening. Angelina Jolie, her first post on Instagram, she called what's going on in Afghanistan a failure almost impossible to understand. The more of these we hear, the more acceptable it is to admit what a failure this commander-in-chief is. The more it will snowball and crumble and collapse. And that is really unfortunate for our country. But it has to happen because he has to go. And Biden still is going to try to spin this as a great achievement. Right? He's going to say, I kept my word to leave by August 31st. I kept my word. We kept our word to the Taliban. Right? He may not say those words at the end, to the Taliban, but that's what it is. He kept his word to the Taliban to leave by August 31st. Oh, that's wonderful. Biden said the other day, he said it's important we keep our word as our country. Give me a break. We have deeply betrayed our allies in Afghanistan. Deeply. Not to mention the American citizens who are still there. But our interpreters, and then we got to separate this conversation. People are conflating these two at the same time, and it's difficult to talk this way. We have our interpreters, right? We need to get them out of harm's way. And a lot of people stop there and they're like, whoa, I don't want them here in America or something, right? And it's like, okay, that's a different conversation. It's about the vetting and who comes to America, totally. We can get them to another country too, right? If you don't want them here, fine. Let's get them out of harm's way. We can put them to Uzbekistan or whatever. But we owe it to them to get them out of harm's way, period. We can all agree on that. Then whether or not they come here, we can have a conversation about, right? Two different things. I'm talking about getting them out of harm's way. They're going to get beheaded. They're going to get burned alive. They're going to get hung in the streets any day now. Good thing Joe Biden kept his word. But this getting our interpreters out has been a problem for a long time. Vice in 2014 did a documentary on Afghanistan and their interpreters. This was back in 2014. And these guys, they have all their paperwork. They got all their letters of recommendation from the American soldiers that they served with. Proof that they saved American lives, risked their lives, been shot at, family members killed by the Taliban, their lives threatened. Everything lined up like a stack of papers, official papers, and still their visas denied. This clip I want to play is from 2014. So this has been a great shame and a failure of ours for a long time. Here's a little clip.
Relatives told me that, hey, Srosh, be careful, the bad people looking for you, and please run away. I'm afraid of that day which the NATO leave Afghanistan, the United States forces leave Afghanistan. It means we are done. They're going to catch me. They're going to probably cut my head off, probably, you know.
Are you sorry that you chose to take a job as an interpreter?
No. I'm proud that I work with the NATO and the United States forces because they done lots of good job. They came from far away to help Afghanistan, rebuild Afghanistan. Right now, I need their help and I wait for them, but I'm sure that the United States is going to help me because I know United States government is not corruption, but maybe it takes a little bit time.
I know the United States government is not corruption. I don't know. Maybe not Afghan government corrupt. Maybe not Afghan level corruption. Inept, surely. And the bureaucracy of it all, the system, makes even good people as cold and calloused as a Soviet commissar. I wonder if the Soviets, during their withdrawal from Afghanistan, I wonder if they did it as badly as we're doing it now. Even they probably kept their word to the Allies. Coming up, we have two amazing guests. Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, who's Pence's national security advisor. I got a lot of questions about the drone strike that Biden launched the other day. The victim, whoever we killed, ranges somewhere between ISIS terrorist who was going to kill people, who's going to blow up a bomb. Oh, and also we killed 6 kids ages 2 to 10 in that same strike. But the main guy was a very bad guy who's going to do bad things. Or somewhere from there to innocent family who had nothing to do with anything, and we just killed 9 people so that Biden could show he was a tough guy. It's somewhere, but the truth is somewhere in there. We have no idea. So I got a lot of questions to the Lieutenant General about how that all goes down. But coming up in the next segment, you must know about Task Force Pineapple. Every American needs to know this story. And also we have a Marine who was a part of the Benghazi raid as well coming up. Awesome show. Super grateful you're here. True story, Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Cider Crusaders, Task Force Pineapple. I pray that we get more information about this as quickly as it is safe to get, because I will never forget it, and we will tell our kids and grandkids the story of Task Force Pineapple. This is a group of retired special operation guys who worked privately to rescue Afghan fighters and interpreters and citizens and their families. And they went to Afghanistan to rescue these guys on their own. Not through the government. They're retired. They just did it. What? It started with one Afghan in particular. There's one Afghan citizen who worked with our special force guys. He worked with SEAL Team 6 for many years. And the Taliban was texting him threatening messages, we're going to kill you and all the rest. So these Americans who worked with him, they said, we got to go get him. In the end, there are 50 people who are in this encrypted chat text thing, right? Who worked together to rescue him. They navigated through the dark streets of Kabul in the middle of the night from house to house, past Taliban checkpoints to smuggle him into the airport. And they were able to rescue him, right? They got him to the gates of the airport, smuggled him in. Now, like, that's crazy. And then they said, well, let's keep going. Let's do it again. Task Force Pineapple, what we know of so far, has saved the lives of 630 people. Army Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, he's a retired Green Beret commander. He was one of the guys who led the team. He said this Herculean effort couldn't have been done without the unofficial heroes inside the airfield who defied their orders to not help beyond the airport perimeter, right? So the US government officially told guys in the airport, do not help anyone outside of the airport, right? They defied their orders by wading into sewage canals and pulling in these targeted people who were flashing pineapples on their phones. What? I got a lot of questions about all of that. But let's back it up here for a second. We have to sit on this. This is crazy. Imagine being so much of a man that you not only have courage seeping out of your pores, but you have profound, just embedded deep into your core loyalty. Put those two things together, courage and loyalty, to the point where you voluntarily go to Afghanistan. How do you even get there? Right? If I give you $1 million, if I said, hey, you got 3 days to just step foot on Afghanistan, I'll give you $1 million just if you get there. I wouldn't even know what time to go to Expedia. I don't even know what I would do. How would I even begin to get there? So these guys know how to get there. They do it. They leave their families. So they're not only loyal and brave and sacrificial and all that, but then they have the skills. Imagine having the skills to be able to pull something like that off. If you just dropped me in the middle of Kabul and said, go rescue someone, I'd be like, no, I don't. What are you talking about? Rescue me? I don't. What do you want me to do? These guys, through their lifetime of training, are able to do this. How awesome is that? So I've been thinking about this all weekend. I am such a pathetic coward. And that recognition makes me admire these men even more. And it's like we're different species. It's like we're different species of people. Amazing. So just think about that. Think about the loyalty to be like, oh, I need to go do this. I need to save these people. The courage to say, I'm going, or let's do it. And then the skills to say, I know what to do. The loyalty, courage, and skills. It's just unfathomable, truly. One of these guys who was angry, of course, that our government didn't do this. He says, well, we did what we should do as Americans. And that's what these guys always are, right? You talk to any World War II vet and you're like, wow, how could you have accomplished what you did? And they say, oh, we're just doing our job. And same thing with these special op guys. They're like, oh, this is what we do. We're Americans. It's what we should do. Like, yeah, I know, but many of the Afghans arrived near Abbey Gate, waded through a sewage-choked canal towards a U.S. soldier wearing red sunglasses to identify himself. They waved their phones with the pineapples and were scooped up and brought inside the wire to safety. How is that even a thing? This is a retired Green Beret who was a part of it. I've been involved in some of the most incredible missions and operations that a Special Forces guy could be a part of. And I've never been a part of anything more incredible than this. Okay, so that's Task Force Pineapple. There's another group called Commercial Task Force. Very similar deal. Got some war vets, some rich people. There was a businessman from Naples, Florida. He was in Washington, D.C. for some business convention when Kabul fell. He got in touch with some former special ops guy. I don't know how they know each other, whatever. And the former special ops guy's like, we got to save these people. And this business guy's like, okay. He had some connections with people in Dubai. So he went down to his hotel's front desk, put down his American Express card, and rented the conference room and got to work. And they called up the government of Somaliland. I didn't even know that's a country. And it's actually not even a country. It's like a fake country. It's part of Somalia. It's like no one even knows if it's really a country, right? So he calls up the government of this Somaliland. How do you just Google that? And they agreed to accept 10,000 Afghan evacuees. Great, so now we got somewhere to put them. He worked with the people in Dubai, UAE, to work on the planes. Okay, great. Then we got these American guys who are going on these planes. So you got to get to Dubai, get on these planes, go to Kabul. Once the plane landed, they had 45 minutes to bring in the evacuated people, put them on the plane before the plane took off again. They did it the first time. They evacuated 24 people. And same thing as these other guys. They're like, well, let's do it again. So that means as the plane's landing, they had to be communicating with the Afghans, telling them where to go, and then smuggle them through the gates, all in 45 minutes to get on the plane and leave. And they kept doing it over and over. And this group has evacuated 5,000 people. This is who we are. This is who we are. Now you look at this and it's unfathomable. It's unfathomable. But we all have a chance to do it. Not to go to Afghanistan, of course. You know, there's a hurricane going on right now in Louisiana. The Cajun Navy, they're going to be deployed shortly, no doubt. What's the Cajun Navy? Just a bunch of guys. Just a bunch of guys with boats going from house to house rescuing people. That's what they do. They're not waiting for FEMA. They get to work now. Citizens rescuing people, not waiting for the government to come and help. And your community needs you too, with whatever you can do. You have the loyalty. You have the courage. You have the skills. You have them. Maybe not to go to Afghanistan and rescue people through the Taliban-choked streets of Kabul. Almost no one can do that. But you can do what you can do. You just have to decide to do it. And be inspired by these guys. And we have to do it. Because if we don't, who are we as a country? We have to figure this out. And I want to say this to our vets. You did not fail. You did not let anyone down. You did not. The system did. The men at the top did. The president did. You didn't fail anyone. Our leaders did. This is not on you. It's on them. You've been forced to take the brunt of it and feel the pain of it. And they feel none of it. They're immune from it all. 12 Marines have been killed. A Navy medic. 1 Marine's been fired for all this. 1. He's the guy who made a viral video calling for accountability from our leaders. Those have been the casualties of this past week. Not one other Marine was fired. Not one general. Not one person from the State Department. No one at the top. You feel the pain. They're focused on the next election. Check out this picture right here. This is Corporal Hunter Lopez. His last act of service was carrying this young boy 5 miles on his shoulders to safety. I'd love to hear more from that little boy one day about the Marine who saved his life. The shirt, you guys put that up one more time? If you look at the little boy's shirt, it says, carry on. It says carry on. It's from, it's a Pokemon t-shirt. It says carry on. Corporal Lopez literally carried this boy on his shoulders for 5 miles. And it's up to us to carry on the legacy of these Marines and their acts of service and love and loyalty and courage and skill. Keith Kellogg coming up next, and then one of the men who was in the Benghazi raid. All coming up next. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. In the last segment, we were just talking about accountability and the lack of it at the top. Not one person has been fired because of this failure that's been the last few weeks, except for one Marine who made a video criticizing leadership and calling for more accountability. And of course, he was fired. Here's a little bit of his video.
I'm not saying we've got to be in Afghanistan forever, but I am saying, did any of you throw your rank on the table and say, hey, it's a bad idea to evacuate Bagram Airfield, the strategic air base, before we evacuate everyone? Did anyone do that? And when you didn't think to do that, did anyone raise their hand and say, we completely messed this up? I've got battalion commander friends right now that are posting similar things, and they're saying, wondering if all the lives were lost and if it was in vain, all those people that we've lost over the last 20 years. Potentially all those people did die in vain if we don't have senior leaders that own up and raise their hand and say, we did not do this well in the end. Without that, we just keep repeating the same mistakes. This amalgamation of the economic / corporate / political / higher military ranks are not holding up their end of the bargain. I have been fighting for 17 years. I am willing to throw it all away to say to my senior leaders, I demand accountability.
Yeah, he did throw it all away. 3 years before he hit his 20. Our friend, retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg is here. He was the National Security Advisor to Mike Pence for many years. General, how are you today, sir?
Good, Mike. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So honored to talk to you, and of course from the American Policy Institute. General, a lot of questions. I was watching a lecture the other day, I forget who it was from, but he was running through during World War II how we were repeatedly firing generals all the time. There's a carousel of firing generals for mistakes that were made constantly. And the historian said it's hard to even keep a historical record of it because it was happening so often, and there's no accountability here. What's the proper course of action, you think, when it comes to literally firing people or resigning?
Yeah, well, Mike, I think what you're asking is a great question, and it needs to be asked and it needs to be answered. And that is the question on accountability, because this was a debacle at the highest levels. Clearly mistakes were made, plans were made in error, and execution was bad. And I want to talk about the young men and women on the ground. I think they're American heroes, those that are physically on the ground at Karzai International Airport in Kabul are doing the Lord's work, and nobody should ever take anything away from them. That's at the tactical level. The decisions that were made are at the strategic level. And somebody needs to ask the question, the hard questions, is who made those decisions and how were those decisions made? And you're right about accountability. I mean, if we walk away from this and there's no accountability, that sends a really, really terrible message to the rank and file of the men and women in uniform below him, and also to the entire world. Well, who was accountable? Somebody had to make these bad decisions. And I think you're starting to see some of those decisions now coming out in the open. Apparently, there's an unconfirmed Washington Post report this morning that said that General McKenzie had met with Baradar, who's the chief of the Taliban political office, and Baradar actually offered him control of Kabul, the city, until they got out of there on the 31st. I don't know if that's true or not, but if we didn't take him up on that offer and put troops in there to get our people out, well, that's an unforced error. So long term, somebody's going to have to pay the price for this. It's a political decision, and somebody needs to be responsible for it. You know, we all know that that's what the military is really good at, about is accountability, and it needs to be done here.
Does resigning ever cross the mind of the people in the top ranks today?
You know, well, I hope it would, Mike. You know, that's key, that you walk out the door and say, I just can't take this anymore, and walk out, you know, and say, I resign for the good of the service. I saw this happen in the military when I was there. There was an Air Force 4-star general that basically said, I'm done with this, and walked out the door, the General Fogelman, years ago, because he couldn't put up with the policies. People like General Singlov is the Army general the same way. Yeah, I think that's an appropriate time. But the trouble is, Mike, people kind of internalize it. They say, well, it's better if I stay. Well, no, it's better if you go. Somebody once said a dead general here and there does wonders for morale. Well, so does a resignation, because people are saying, okay, that proves there's accountability in the system, and they're taking accountability. I will tell you right now, I don't think you're going to see it. I don't think anybody's going to get fired, and I don't think anybody's going to resign in the near term.
It's actually interesting, as we're talking about this, there's two different types of resigning. There's resigning out of shame, which is, I believe, what we're talking about here. Like, oh, I failed so badly, I have to go. And then there's the resigning out of, I'm so against what is happening right now and the decisions that are being made. I think that's what that Marine was talking about there. Like, where's the higher rank putting their rank on the table? Let's say Joe Biden says we need to do this. Let's say, like, look, we need to leave the air base, Bagram Air Base. Where's the top guy being like, no, I can't do this. I can't be a part of that, right? Like, where are the top guys who are pushed back against these plans? Or were these top guys the ones making the plans? What's happening? What do you think?
Well, it's a two-part answer to that. One, they were part of making the plan and bringing it to the President of the United States. And I've been in those situations where you go into the White House Situation Room, and it's a very, what I would say, robust discussion before the president makes that decision. But it comes to a point, even if you don't agree with the decision, and you say this is going to cause casualties or great harm, then you say, Mr. President, I serve at your pleasure, but I also cannot support this, and walk out the door. I don't think that's done by anyone, because I don't think any of them understood the gravity of the situation. I really do think, Mike, I've been pretty harsh on some people out there that I think some senior people should go. And part of that is like his own national security team. I think if I was president, and I'm not, or if Donald Trump was president, I'm sure it would be strong consideration to get rid of his national security advisor, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Make a clean sweep, because somebody's got to be accountable for it. You need to start all over again, because he's not going to go anywhere, and his vice president's not going to go anywhere, even though she's been missing in action for the last 2 weeks. I haven't even seen her around the block. But somebody needs to be held accountable. It sends a terrible message, Mike, if somebody is not held responsible or accountable for the action. We've lost a country that's gone back to a terrorist-based organization going forward. Our allies now look at us a little bit differently. And you look at all the refugees we have and the people we may have left behind. It's a terrible situation.
Let's switch over a bit to the drone strike that took place the other day. I forget, I'm getting my days confused. Maybe it was Friday night, I forget. But it was announced that Biden authorized a drone strike to be launched in retaliation to the ISIS-K attack that killed our 13 men and women. Then a couple days later, like yesterday, we're starting to hear that there were maybe 6 kids killed in that attack, 3 adults and 6 kids ages 2 to 10. So my understanding is, in general, I'd love to get your take, is it's somewhere between, the man who we were trying to kill was definitely going to go commit a terrorist act and kill a bunch of people. We stopped him and there was some collateral damage of children. 2, I don't know, maybe this was an innocent family who had nothing to do with anything. And everyone's deciding where it is, somewhere between there. But even the State Department came out and said they're going to investigate more, which is a little bit of an oops. How does something like that go down? How does a drone strike on a target happen? What's the process of that?
Well, there's supposed to be a good process about identification of the target and who it is. Here's what's interesting, because there was a very senior commentator made a comment on it a day ago. He said, who were these people we were going after by name? When we had a drone strike in the Trump administration, we would, at the end of the strike, once we got out of the area, we would identify who we just went after and who we got. You'll notice that nobody has said by name who it was out there. Who were we going after, and who cleared the strike? There had to be somebody. You just don't go out and fly a drone out there, Staff Sergeant Smith or Staff Sergeant Jones or Captain Jones, and conduct a drone strike. That had to be approved at a very senior level. We're talking probably at the chairman level, down through the CENTCOM commander level, and had to be approved by the President of the United States. The question is, who are these guys? I will tell you, when we did a drone strike, the President of the United States knew exactly who we were going after, and he would know exactly the results, and then we would announce who it was. I've got to be really honest, Mike. I look at this drone strike and I go, I just don't feel comfortable about this one. I'm not, this is one of those, somebody, is this a feel-good drone strike where we killed somebody, and now it's one of those, as you said, kind of an oops moment. And then my fear is, yeah, we may be into an oops moment again, which is just compounding other unforced error. Here's what I said: tell us who these people were, at what level were they an ISIS-K, and what were their responsibilities, and I'd feel a whole lot better if I heard that.
How do we know? So two things. This person, whoever we killed, how do we know that it was they say it was a truck full of explosives, right?
Mm-hmm.
What type of intelligence could we have had on the ground to know that to the precision where there's the truck and hit it right now? And also, we knew with real great precision about the attack the other day that killed our men and women. They got it pretty close to when exactly it was going to take place and where it was going to take place. How would we know that?
There's two ways to do it, Mike. I don't want to get into tactics, and procedures, but simply put, you've got human, which is human intelligence, and you've got SIGINT, which is signals intelligence. So let's just say you have a platform, an air platform, above the KABUL, and it's listening to conversations, and it picks them up, and you get this. Or you've got human sources that are saying, hey, my friend over here is going to blow this thing up here tomorrow or a week from Tuesday. So those are the two sources, and that could have it could have been somebody inside the Taliban, even though Taliban and the ISIS-K don't like each other very much, like they hate each other. Or it could have been our ability of people to know this is what's happening. So that intelligence comes forward. It was very, very clear we knew something was coming because you listened to all the pronouncements that when they cleared the gate as quick as they did, they moved people away, they knew it was coming. And you kind of go, wait a second, if we knew it was coming, why didn't we take super precautions about having standoff, move this away, check it out going forward? Because, we lost 13 great men and women out there because something went wrong, clearly. And I'm wondering if it was the planning or the accession of information. So there are ways to do it, and there's also credibility. You don't know if the source is a top-level source, in other words, a very good source, or it's just rumor. But we took enough of that concern that we announced that this was a significant incident about to happen. So the source had to be pretty good.
Yeah. I got about 30 seconds, sir. What do you anticipate the Taliban doing when we leave tomorrow? What do you see them doing in the next few days when it comes to going door to door and killing people, et cetera? Or are they going to, I don't know, care about the international community or whatever?
Mike, I think it's a great open question. You can't trust them. I do know that when we talked with them, the president was really clear laying down clear consequences to their actions and don't do anything stupid, dumb. I don't know what kind of consequences they're looking at right now out there, but they've not been, if you look at their track record, it has not been a good track record. And I think there's going to be retribution. I think that's just the way they do it. And so it's unfortunate, but that's what we're leaving behind.
Super grateful. Retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. He was NSA for Pence for many years. General, super grateful. American First Policy Institute. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
And your insight. Coming up next, Mark Geist is going to be here. He was one of the Marines who was a part of the Benghazi raid. We'll talk about the men who are over there, the special ops guys who are rescuing people on their own without the U.S. government's help. Do that next. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Setter Crusaders, we kicked off the show talking about Task Force Pineapple and Commercial Task Force, just regular American citizens, former retired special op guys who are getting together, going to Afghanistan and rescuing citizens and Afghan interpreters and people who have served with us and alongside of us. And it is the epitome of America. It's the most incredible thing I've ever heard. These guys going in there and cleaning up our government's mess. Incredible. Mark Geist, you know the name. He's cleaned up the government's mess once before, saved 25 lives in the Battle of Benghazi. And he's running right now the Shadow Warriors Project, which is here to help get Afghans and Americans perhaps even too out of Afghanistan right now. Mark Geist, how are you, sir?
Doing great. How are you doing, Mike?
Man, really good to talk to you. We talked, again, the first segment of the show, we talked about the courage, the loyalty, and the skills that you guys have to pull something like this off. Like, let's speak to this. Well, let's speak to the skills part. Like if you drop me off, first of all, I wouldn't have the courage to even think to go, let alone go, right? But if you drop me in the middle of Afghanistan and said to go save people, I'd be like, oh, I don't know what to do. What are some of the skills that these special op guys have that can even make them an effective tool out over there?
Well, a lot of these guys that are over there and are helping out with this project, both ours, the Pineapple Express, and all of the other veteran service organizations that are stepping up to help out. Over the last 20 years, we've been in that country, in and out. We know the people, we know how to move among them. And a lot of it just comes with having the courage to do it. And a lot of that comes from just being a part of something that's bigger than yourself and that selfless service that they've given for so many years.
Yeah, that's so easy to say, but that's still, it's so unfathomable. It's unreal. Like, how do you even get to the Kabul airport and then you leave the Kabul airport and in the middle of the night you're smuggling people from house to house to get back to the Kabul airport? How is that possible?
You know, it's just years of being able to operate in that environment, and most of us have. In some type of environment like that, either in small groups, in groups of 1 and 2, whatever it is, working overseas for the last 20 years on this war on terror against the Taliban themselves, knowing their tactics, techniques, you know, watching how they do stuff. And it's just been developed over that time period.
What's the biggest hurdle once you're over there?
The U.S. government, State Department wanting us not to be there, thinking that we're stepping on their toes, going to make them look bad. I think I'm not sure. You know, we're just getting pushed back from them. They're getting involved with other countries, preventing civilian flights from landing or refueling that may be supporting any of these efforts. And unfortunately, you know, we would rather them work with us, but we're willing to do it alone if that's what's necessary.
Can you describe how strong Taliban control is over Kabul right now?
Oh, Kabul is the worst of it. I mean, Kabul is where, and that's the most difficult area to operate in. It is not an area that is conducive to our longevity, as well as those who are stuck there. You know, the best thing for people to do is to get out of Kabul. Right now, you know, we are seeing Kabul as a powder keg. And come tomorrow, the 31st, when things are shut down, communication is going to become a big issue. I foresee that the Taliban is going to shut off the internet, and they are going to do everything they can to prevent people from being able to communicate outside their borders. They're going to kick every reporter out, and this whole idea of being Taliban 2.0, or the nicer, kinder, gentler Taliban, I think is going to be done. And, you know, that's when the retributions are going to come, because they're not any different. I mean, Haqqani has been around for how long, and he has not changed his ways. He's learned that you can sit there and say what you want and people will believe it because they have that string of hope that it is true. But unfortunately, it's not. And, you know, that's what's frustrating for us that have served overseas so much, is the fact that the U.S. government is actually treating them as a legitimate government.
Not only that, but they're in charge of protecting us. We're putting them in charge of. I can't. My brains can't even say those words. Like, how insane is this? We got to talk again, Mark. Give us 60 seconds. What specifically is the Shadow Warriors Project? It's 501c3. People can donate. Where's their money going to?
Well, so we have a lot of different programs going on. We've initially started out as helping private security contractors and their families who get killed or injured overseas. And then we've developed a K9 program as well. But then when this kicked off and we knew that we had contractors over there, we had American citizens, we had those that worked with our military as Afghan nationals, that we needed to help get them out. And the other group that is kind of not being talked about is all of the pastors and missionaries that have been spreading the Lord's word to Afghan. They are in jeopardy as well, and we're wanting to help work with them and get as many of them out as possible as well. ShadowWarriorsProject.org is the best place to go to donate if you feel it on your heart to want to be a part of something bigger than yourself.
I got literally 30 seconds. What's the biggest lie we're being told right now about the whole situation?
That we're not in charge, that we can't take it, that we cannot stay there any longer. It's been a deadline that was put on us by the administration, by Joe Biden himself, and now the Taliban are using that as a line in the sand, so to speak, or a red line that, you know, if you do not cross, then there's consequences. This is America. What we need to do is tell them that, you know, we're going to be out when we want to get out, and there ain't a thing you can do about it. If you choose to kill Americans, then we will never get out. And we're going to come back and bring, you know, as Joey from Fox said, you know, hey, the dogs of war are hungry. Let's let them eat.
Mark Geist, shadowwarriorsproject.org. Mark, let's talk again. Grateful for you.
Thanks, Mike. You guys have a wonderful
Thank
day.
you, brother.
God bless.
You as well. Shadowwarriorsproject.org. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word.